When Princess Diana died in the car crash and later Charles married Camilla, they told us Camilla would never be queen or have that title. But this week at the coronation, we saw them put a crown on Camilla's head and proclaim her Queen Camilla. The message at the coronation was all about exemplifying Christ through love. But then they went on to talk about doing good works like climate change and charity. All the while, Prince Harry wasn't even seated with his family. And Princess Diana, well, she's still dead. It was an example of saying one thing and doing something else. Welcome. Welcome to Sunday Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. At Sunday Coffee Hour, we talk about everything and nothing. This Sunday, we talked about having a high street party, speaking unapologetically, cooking a meat pie, and about how we all like to do everything we can to avoid a conflict. At Washington National Cathedral, the readings were from Acts. It always seems like people want to shoot us down just when we're ready to grasp heaven. And from Peter, we always overlook the most useful things as meaningless. The gospel reading was about how in the Lord's house, there are many mansions. It's like a Motel 6 in heaven. The sermon at Washington National Cathedral was about how we're having a very specific relationship with God. God provides the frame, and we can't really understand God through God because he's God and we're not. God understands himself through himself on our behalf. It's very, very heavy. Rose talked about living in our post-truth reality and how there's no absolute truth and how everyone believes this absolutely. I appreciate Rose for bringing up this topic, but I was struck by the fact that she kind of did the same thing we all do. She assumed that our truth is the truth. It's the saying one thing and doing something else. Our idea of absolute truth of inclusion is, it's a good example. It's like a laundry list of inclusion. We read this most weeks at church. It's the LGBTQ trans list. It's tiny, tiny boxes of inclusion, and we all need to fit into one of them in order to be included, or accepting of all of them so we're not guilty of being the wrong thing. It's not my idea of them in many mansions, and it's also not my idea of inclusion, but I can see how many people can see it that way. Meanwhile, on the other channel at St. James, Lisa preached about Lego building blocks and how one Lego is kind of boring, but with many Legos, blocks or stones, you can actually build something. We all want to know ahead of time what we're building, but we can't because we're not the builder. God is. Lisa said the best part of the Episcopal Church is that we don't need to check our brains at the door. We can experience the truth and beauty beyond all the stuff. At the coronation, Prince William gave his pledge of fidelity to his father. It was a very short pledge, pledging his entire will, arm and limb, in love to his father and nation. It was a simple enough task to give his pledge, but he had to read it off a cue card. Instead of giving his pledge out of his heart, he instead gave his pledge to his father off a cue card. When Princess Diana got married to Charles at St. Paul's in 1981, she had to recite Charles's full name. It was like 12 names, and there was no cue card. She managed to do so. Yes, she did transpose two of the names, but it was charming and real. Diana self-described herself as being a little thick, but she was able to grasp the gist of it and pull it off. I don't think that's asking too much, and I believe she did so out of love. When Diana died, they told us Camilla would never be queen. And prior to the coronation, Camilla somehow became the queen consort. But at the coronation, they put that crown on her head and pronounced her Queen Camilla. It was a huge breach of the public trust. I guess they think we're just too dumb to notice, but we did. At Fourth Church, we always did our best to avoid conflict at all costs. At the same time, we always touted the church polity and the need to follow the rules. But as soon as those rules got in the way of accomplishing a thing, they tossed the church polity aside like a dirty rag. And avoiding conflict, well, that's what we wanted to do at all costs in order to accomplish something. It was the stone that the builders rejected, and it had devastating consequences. Conceptually, I don't have a problem with saying one thing and doing something else, as long as the something else is God's doing. Princess Diana asked Charles once, why is it that you're with that other woman? And Charles said, I don't want to be the only Prince of Wales who never had a mistress. That's an adult conversation. And I wonder why it is we can't have more of those. At the coronation, the message and sermon and readings was all about modeling and exemplifying Christ. It was a conflation of church and state, the idea of exemplifying love, but also accomplishing things. Instead of seeing things accomplished through love, they listed the accomplishments as a bunch of stuff. They listed Charles' work on climate change and his other charitable works. And then they presented a lot of stuff as part of the ceremony, the spurs, the ring, the scepter, as if the stuff exemplifies the love. All the while, his other son, Harry, was seated in the back row. I'm not a Bible expert, but I understand the gist of the story of Revelation, telling us that when we see the harlot seated in the throne, we know we're getting near the end of the story. I am kind of sorry I got up early to see the coronation this week, but I'm not really sure I needed to see that with my own eyes, but I guess that's part of being a witness. We sometimes need to witness things for good or for bad. And we don't always recognize it at the time, but luckily, none of us are as dumb as they think we are. And we can realize and recognize the difference between God's work and the work of our own hearts and desires. We all need to be the best Lego block we can be and leave the work of building the true something to God. If you'd like to join us at Sunday Coffee Hour is every Sunday at 12 noon Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video. I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.